say the names after people have spoken?
Okay, Steve Hudson made the motion. I think Tony seconded it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Carrie's here. Do you want, Becky, do you want me to call the roll for each vote or just do a show of hands? What do you want to do?
Unfortunately, I think you have to call the roll.
Okay. Or do you want to call the roll, Becky, and just make a note of it as we go?
It's, no, I think you should.
Okay. All right. Is there any members of the public online, or do we know? No. Item number 5, approval of the voucher. Everyone got a chance to sign the documents online?
Are we gonna do the roll?
Yeah, you got to do the roll for the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right. So all those in favor of the approving the minutes, just say aye or nay when I call your name. Joe Koff,
I am going to say I am in attendance. I didn't hear a motion for approval of the minutes.
Yeah, the motion was for the approval of the agenda, Rob.
Right.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Did you get those two, Becky?
Wait, I'm sorry, Rob. I
The
think we're
agenda.
jumping around a lot.
You've got a motion on the floor already, Rob. You have to act on that one, which was, did
The
we
agenda.
finish the agenda first or the attendance? So those,
We voted on the approval of the agenda. That
Okay.
passed.
so,
Yeah, we did.
right. So we didn't take a roll on that one. So
Okay.
irrespective of that, we need to take an attendance roll.
Roll call.
So let's back up and do the roll on the approval of the agenda, just
If-
to get it
If you want me
started.
to do it, I'll just do it. But for the approval of the agenda, Joseph Koff
Aye.
and Robert Jordan,
Aye.
Tony Smith,
Aye.
Carol Plenty, Ann Radcliffe,
Aye.
Steve Hudson,
Aye.
Ingrid Kakmar,
Aye.
Lawson Wilson,
Aye.
and Kristen McKee,
Aye.
and Carrie Hayes.
Right.
Okay, and then you, so that's unanimous. And then you've confirmed the board member attendance by virtue of that roll call. And
Right.
we don't have public comment, and you just asked about the approval of the voucher.
Right.
And then we,
I forgot to finish that particular item, item 5. So my question was, did everyone get a chance to sign the voucher online? Yeah, so Matt, was that all taken care of online?
Yes.
So
Thank you.
we don't need a motion for that. I'll just
Nope.
move on from that. All right, item 6, approval of the minutes from November 30th of 2020.
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
You want to do
Steve
the
Hudson.
roll, Ann?
that's Tony and Steve.
Steve.
Yes.
Thank you. And Joseph Koff,
Aye.
Robert Jordan,
Aye.
Tony Smith,
Aye.
Carol Plenty. Do you approve?
You.
Oh, you can put a thumb up. I can see you. Okay. Ann Radcliffe,
Aye.
Steve Hudson,
Aye.
Ingrid Kakmar,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
and Kristen.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Item 7, reports, updates, and communications. Did everyone, I think I asked this last time, so it's kind of redundant, but everyone get a chance to see Senator Lucchini's letter?
Yes.
So I don't need to read it to anybody? Okay. Science wing and library projects, we're going to have some updates about that. Ann, you want to take this?
Yes.
Can't hear you.
Yep. Okay. So I made some notes. I'm just going to read from them from my laptop. So at our last meeting, we voted to reconvene, repopulate, and choose the chairs of the library and the science wing subcommittees. Carrie was asked to chair the science subcommittee, and subsequently in a conversation, Carrie wasn't sure if that was ever officially handed to her, but I think it was. So Lawson at that meeting asked to join the science subcommittee. And then after the meeting, I corresponded with Matt and I agreed to chair the library subcommittee. So just kind of catching everybody up on where we are. Rob also sent out an email to ask if any new or not new trustees wanted to join either subcommittee, and subsequently Joe Koff asked to be on the library subcommittee. Everybody get me? So we have, for the science subcommittee, we have Carrie, Tony, and Lawson right now, currently. And for the library, it is Matt, Ingrid, Joe, myself, and Devon Pappas. Devon's the head librarian at the high school. So, any questions so far?
Ann,
Go ahead, Mark.
excuse me, Rob, thanks so much. And just as a former science teacher, I'd be happy to sit in on the science subcommittee, just to listen in, and it's a passion, so I'm happy to help in any way. Thank you.
We'll take that under consideration, Mark.
Yeah.
Get back to you. Okay, so
Thank you.
I mean, just stick with me because we have. I think we're gonna keep going here. So, the library subcommittee has completed the work necessary to summarize the goals / wishes for the party. So the needs, the things you want, everything together for the library expansion. And Matt has agreed to work with Devon on putting that information together for trustee review. We have the 3 months deadline, so it will be before the 3 months deadline, so that we have time to review it before that meeting. And then it is my understanding that the Science Wing Subcommittee is still working to gather their information, but a good portion of the goals for that project are known by Matt and maybe a few other people, but I'm not sure who else. So at this time, I'd like to propose that we join the two subcommittees into one. Our vision is that this will be one project, just in two different spheres, and that this is a good time to join forces as we begin to take steps toward project development. I think a single subcommittee at this time is a good, we can work together to our individual strengths and our expertise and bring together the information necessary to present to the whole group. So that's what.
Tony?
Is there any chance of a tour of the science rooms?
Mark?
Matt?
Rob, is it okay to respond?
Yeah. And then Matt,
First of all,
Matt's next.
an apology to Ann. You were right. I should have kept quiet. So now I know where you're going. Rob, I think that we could arrange something after hours. I mean, we know so much more about COVID that we didn't know in March. And I think for any of the trustees that would like to get a tour, we can work through Matt, and as long as it's in the evening and we have the opportunity to plan, and we keep within the guidelines, I think we could work through Matt to arrange something. Our buildings remain closed. All of our meetings are remote, but
Okay.
this is really important. And I think, I'd like Matt to weigh in, but I think use with physical distancing, PPE, and making sure, that pre-approval, if Matt's comfortable with it, I'd like to see if we can make that happen. Matt, thoughts?
Yes, I agree. And I think we should probably schedule that right now. We may need to do it in 2 shifts, depending on how many people are interested.
Okay. And have there been any meetings of the science committee? I'm not aware of one.
The answer is no.
Okay. So we need to, and Mark, you'll be a great help being the science teacher, and Matt, to help us look at, I've been in a high school science lab for a long time.
Ingrid?
Matt, have you had any conversations with our science teachers yet about this, what they're looking for?
Yes, we have. We had a like Ann was saying before, we're pretty far down the road of knowing what we want.
Okay.
And worked with, we did have a walkthrough with the subgroup at the time that we had going last year. We also had a couple of community scientists with us. And Lawson was there also. We have a pretty good start. We don't have to go back in time and like,
Okay.
we're pretty well ready to know exactly what we want. What the goals are, what the priorities are.
Okay.
Ingrid again, and then Carrie.
So I just want, Anne, if you can give me a little bit of clarity on what you mean that the groups are gonna come together, and because obviously the library committee has gotten to the point where now Matt and Devon are ready to write something up. So what are, like, so I'm on the library subcommittee, what am I gonna be doing when we join forces, right? I'm just looking for clarity on that.
Right. Well, it's a good question, and maybe now isn't the time. But I was thinking, and not everybody has to stay on their subcommittee. To me, it's a juncture point, because we're ready to start looking at concepts. Someone helped drawing up concepts, and we have to all be at the same table. And maybe it's not everyone. Think it's a time for to join the subcommittees and have it just be a consolidated group. But I think the library people, need to forward the library agenda, but we may not need everybody to do that. And the science people kind of need to catch up. My feeling just was like, we don't even have an ability to draw up really what we want. It's too much. That's like a concept where we're not there yet. So I don't know if that answers your question very well. Yeah.
And
Carrie, then Tony.
Thank you.
I was just looking to clarify that we did have a meeting last year right before COVID started. Most of the science teachers were there, and the people that I knew of that were on the science subcommittee were there. And we did do a tour at that time. That's when we found that the ventilation of the chemical closet was in such bad shape. So that was something that I was trying to push at that point. I do think that we can combine the subcommittees. I do wonder if maybe the science group should meet one more time, just as a science group with Matt before we come together, because I do think we could shrink the group then once those recommendations have come out. But I'd hate to bring all the people who have been working on the library and done their fair share of the work in right now and ask them to do the work that was supposed to be done by the science committee.
Tony?
I don't think we're asking the library committee to do the work that the science committee was supposed to do. But up to that point, I agree with Carrie having another meeting. Matt, you had said you wanted to schedule this tour now, if we could do that. And I hope you dog lovers will cut me some slack, since I'm the one that asked for the tour. I'm out next week going south to get a hip replacement in my dog. And then depending on the COVID test, I may be tied up the following week working from home. So that's the first 2 weeks in February.
When do you leave?
Sunday.
You want to do it this week, Matt?
Yes. What time of day are we thinking?
Well, Mark said after hours.
Yeah, I mean, after hours these days can be
10 o'clock.
Yeah.
much earlier than it is during a normal
Yeah.
time.
My after hours are anywhere after 5 or 6. Matt, I'll work with you even Saturday morning or something.
Yeah, I don't really want to do that, frankly.
Why don't you send out,
do a doodle poll.
do a doodle poll tonight and just to the members of the committees, and then work it out for this week.
Or tomorrow.
One suggestion to simplify this, since Carrie did a walkthrough last year and so did I'm just sort of thinking about sort of logistics and simplifying it as much as possible. Maybe it's just Tony doing a tour, and that might get logistically easier. I'm not sure if other people, I'm trying to see if other people would like
Joe,
to join.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd actually like to take a tour of both. I'm new to the library subcommittee, so I haven't got any information on it, but I'd certainly like a tour of the science as well. I mean, we're expected to vote on something that, or I'm expected to possibly vote on something I have no idea about right now. And so, yeah, I would like a tour on both. I don't care if they're, consecutive. It doesn't matter to me, but I don't feel at all prepared to vote on anything without some background.
So in order to move this along, how many people would like to have a tour this week? Just raise your hand. So we got 3 people, Matt. 4
Cool.
people. Carol as well.
I can do 5 o'clock either tomorrow or Wednesday. I have things in the evening the other days.
How's that sound to you 4?
Just one sec.
Lynn,
My interest is just because I have no background information on this.
Yeah.
Wednesday would be better than Tuesday for me, but I am not as important as committee members, so.
5 o'clock Tuesday, Wednesday works for me too.
Can you do Wednesday, Matt?
I can do Wednesday at 5.
Is Wednesday at 5 good for you guys?
It is me.
Yes?
Yep.
I don't see any objections, so let's do that.
Where do we meet?
Let's meet right by the main office.
Okay.
At 5 o'clock on Wednesday.
Are-
Does everybody know where I'm talking about? Okay, excellent. I will get it in my calendar.
Are you okay with the 2 tours? Or do you want to?
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense to do both of them.
Okay.
It won't take ages.
Ann?
and to that end, then Lawson and Carrie, do you guys want to see the library? Are you available to zip over for this? Because we'll be kind of summarizing where we are with at that.
Yeah, I've got a 4 o'clock, so it sort of depends on how long my 4 o'clock meeting goes and if I'll be able to get over. I'm hoping to
Okay.
to join if I can.
So you said Wednesday at 5?
Yes.
Okay. I should be able to do that.
I'm going to be there too, Matt.
Okay, just so when you come in, just make sure I mean, this is gonna sound dumb, but I have to say it out loud. Make sure you wear a mask when you come in and that we
Yeah.
have hand sanitizer inside the door. And when we do it, we'll keep our 6 feet or more from one another and we'll be good to go.
Thank you.
Any other questions on tours or, yes, Joe?
Advertising?
Advertising.
We will be having a meeting with 3 or more persons that may have requirements for advertising of a public meeting.
May I, Rob?
Yeah, I don't think it's a meeting, but go ahead, Mark.
No, you are correct, Rob. It is not a meeting. There's no public notice required. This is just a tour. If any member of the public or the media would want to access that, they should contact Principal Haney's office. But this is not a meeting. There'll be no action items. There'll be nothing formal. And I feel very confident saying that, but if you want me to check with legal counsel, I can.
I'm confident with that, but I don't know. Joe, is that fine with you?
I was always told that anytime that we're discussing an item that's before us, even if there isn't any action, I would just be comfortable with having a ruling, having an opinion. But if I'm the only one out there and I'm the outlier, that's, I'll defer to the rest of the group.
No, with your permission, Rob, I'll make a quick call in the morning and describe the context to make sure we're covered. And if there's anything that I need to alert you on, I'll call you immediately. But I feel comfortable we're able to do this. And as Joe outlined, I think it's important for folks to know there's no action or
Right.
any action being taken. But I will research and get back to you immediately tomorrow morning, Rob.
Yeah,
Steve-
it's always been my opinion that even if there's an action, if there's discussion about an item, that's the critical thing. But again, I'll wait for the opinion. So thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, I would like to see an opinion on it because this is already brought up about the meeting that Tony and I had with Butch Bracy. So,
Yes.
Well, the only dilemma that I see here, I'm not arguing one way or the other. I think there's a time frame that you have to give public notice. I'm not sure if 48 hours falls
There is
within
a
that
time frame. The general rule of thumb is 72 hours notice to the public. The board or boards have the ability to call an emergency meeting. Again, this is not a meeting. I'll describe the context to our legal counsel and make sure that I get back to you immediately if there's any questions. But I think it's really good discussion. I think it's good to clarify. I know sometimes there are things that come up that may confuse the public in terms of what is a meeting or is it an illegal meeting. So I think it's really important to be very, very clear and make sure that we get the answer, and we'll provide that in writing to the trustees. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Ann, you want to talk about action steps?
I think are we ahead of ourselves? So now if we want to not do the merging, what's the consensus? Should we wait to, I'm kind of open, so.
Tony? And Tony, and then Joe.
Okay, Carrie suggested that the science committee have a meeting, and that might make sense to do before we merge.
Sounds good.
Joe?
I was going to suggest the same thing. I'm not sure there's a real rush to merge. Until I have more information, I don't even know if it makes sense to merge. So again, I'm new, so I can catch up.
Carrie?
The one thing I just don't want to do is slow down the process anymore. So if we're going to hold another science committee meeting, I would like to make sure we do that prior to our next meeting of the full trustees so that we can report out along with the library committee at the next meeting, if that works. And then hopefully vote on a merger of the subcommittees at the next meeting, if people agree with that. And I'd love, Matt, to see if we could get those at least one or two of those science teachers and the other folks who were community members, Jane Disney, and there was a gentleman from the lab, I believe, if they could join us for that subcommittee meeting.
Tony?
What's the purpose or the rationale for merging the subcommittees? I can see it making sense at some point. Did you already go over that, Ann?
I can read it again. Just from my notes. So I said at this time, I'd like to propose that we join the two subcommittees into one. The vision for the project is that it's one project.
Okay.
So it seems that it should just have one committee moving it forward for clarity, for continuity, for all kinds of reasons. And so it just seemed like it could be a good time, but I think Carrie, I think it's right that we're doing it the way we're doing it, stepping back, making sure the science committee has their information that they want, and then we'll go from there.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions on these subcommittees? I don't see any. Item 8 is discussion items. Anybody have anything they want to discuss before we go to our action items for the day? No? Okay. Item 9, fiscal year 22 budget. Steve, you want to take this over?
Well, I think maybe I'll start if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the last meeting, we talked about we had a tentative outline for our budget. We went through some of the projects that we had been kind of planning out in the coming years. We kind of looked at the 5-year plan, so to speak. And then we talked about in our request to the taxpayers for this year, incorporating the money that has been in the budget, in the high school budget for the debt on the art wing, incorporating that into our request, which would have meant a request of $880,000 of taxpayer money, which is an increase in the trustees budget and of that $380,000, but only about a $15,000 increase in the actual amount. It's just moving it from one budget into the other. That we've been talking about doing that for several years as we've seen this expiration of the debt service coming down the road. What has come to pass since that last meeting is we've learned that even though we still have some outstanding debt on the project, the Windows and Walls project, and several other smaller projects, that debt does not sufficiently, or it does not count in our ability to be able to charge a debt surcharge to tuition paying towns. So what that means is when we went to the bond issue, and we went to the voters, well, not we, I didn't do it, but when back in 2000, when they did the addition onto the art wing, they went to the voters and got approval for that project. And as part of that, the action was taken to charge a 10%, which is the most you can do, a 10% surcharge for any towns paying tuition based on the debt service. When that debt expired a couple of months ago, when we made our last payment in this school year, our ability to charge charge that debt surcharge also expired, which will cost us about $150,000 in revenue in next year's budget. So I would like to propose that we go with, instead of the $880,000 request that we had tentatively talked about last time, I would like to propose that we reduce that by that $150,000 in the reduction of the revenue. So I would like to propose that we would approve a budget for the trustees for a request of the taxpayers of $730,000. And I would also like to say that we should, in a separate motion, at least, I'm not sure, I'm struggling for the word here, but I want to have it in action that the plan is if we get into a situation in the future where we're able to charge the debt surcharge, that we would make that adjustment within this budget. Basically, we would go back up by what the debt surcharge was. So basically, we are just taking that money out of the trustees until such time as that there's another debt surcharge, should we get into that, by borrowing for this project here.
Ingrid and then Tony.
Matt, have we gotten clarity, or Mark, have we gotten clarity from Nancy on what is a project that's allowable to allow us to charge the debt service? Like, will we be able to charge that again once we do this science library project?
Matt, go ahead. I know the answer, but I think you do. So
The answer is
Take it,
yes.
Matt.
Yes, we will. We'll just, that's part of the approval process. So yes, we will be able to do that. Should we borrow substantially to do this next project?
Okay.
Tony,
Rob, are you looking for a motion? What I'm accustomed to is a motion, a second, then the discussion. Are you looking for a motion on Mark's?
sure.
Matt's. Matt, what was that figure?
$730,000.
I make a motion, we go with Matt's figure on that first item of $730,000.
For the 2022 budget.
Yes, thank you, Rob.
Is there a second?
I second. Lawson.
Lawson. Did you get that, Becky?
Thumbs
You wanna
Did,
call-
yep.
Is there any discussion? Carrie and then Mark and then Joe. Carrie?
Forgot I was muted. I just want to clarify, especially for newer folks who are here. So what we're saying then is that the initial amount that we were asking for was the full amount of the month, or was it monthly or annual payments that we were making on that old project, right? Okay. And then in order to bring back the debt service surcharge, what's the process for that? Is that something that we bring to the school board and ask for, or is it part of a bond, or is it something that the school board then ends up asking for?
Matt or Mark, want to answer that?
Go ahead, Mark.
It's part of your high school budget, and that process and that budget validation process would be how that would be done is the short answer. Matt, do you concur?
I do. It would be ultimately, yes, it is a high school action, and I would say it would be important for it to be a very collaborative piece of work between the Board of Trustees and the high school board. But
Yeah,
the actual action would come from that other board.
okay. I mean, that definitely concerns me that there are some tuitioning towns right now that are not incredibly happy with the numbers that they're seeing. So I'm concerned that that's going to be a hard ask.
Mark and then Joe.
Thank you, Rob. Just love to follow up or be able to follow up on Carrie's comment because I think that's important, but I'll hold on that. But I think that was a very good observation. But I wanted to speak to Matt's recommendation. I know you've had a motion and a second, which is the right thing to do, and you're discussing. But at the end of the day, I'd like the trustees to respectfully consider making sure that you leave the door open should the debt be approved to be able to charge that surcharge. The fallback is if you don't amend the motion or you do it this evening that way, if you don't choose to do it, is that we can always bring things back to the trustees for a vote and approval.
My motion was meant to include what Mark
Okay.
just said.
Thank you, Tony. Sorry. Thank you, Rob.
No problem.
Okay. So we got Joe, Steve, and then Ingrid. Joe.
Specifically, Matt, where did I think it was Matt, 150 come out of on the spreadsheet that we've got?
It would,
Which 150 are you talking about?
Well, you wanted to reduce the
Oh,
number.
it's the,
Which line item? Is it minor capital?
no, it's the whole thing. It's the request from taxpayers. I am in.
sorry, Matt, I got it.
Thank you,
Under
'cause
the-
I have way too many tabs open on my computer right now.
Under the annual budgets and accounts sheet,
Hold on.
Section 3, the requested taxpayer funds for 2021, 2022 is currently 880,150, and we would drop that to 730,150. That would be removing the 150,000 that we're not going to be receiving from the outside towns for the debt surcharge.
Okay, and where does that number come from?
That number came from taking our minor capital reserve and each year we increase the requested taxpayer funds by sorry, lost my brain there a second.
Approximately 3%.
Yeah, approximately 3%. And what I didn't show there, and that would be the 3% that we're asking for, because we wouldn't be pulling anything out of any of our reserve accounts.
Okay, so so the 880 is referenced, and I can only go by the spreadsheet, so forgive the lack of references here, but where is is the 880, where does it come from?
It's basically each year, we started several years back boosting our budget, our annual request to the taxpayers.
I'm sorry, you said that. What I'm wondering is.
No, this is pertinent to it.
Okay.
We tried to increase our budget so that we are roughly 4% of the value of the entire facility. That was per recommendation from our previous chairman, board chairman, Sandy, whose last name just left my head, also.
Harlan.
So we've tried to keep up through inflation. Each year we add 3% to whatever the amount was from the year before. Last year we asked for 505,000. This year we would have asked for 505,000 plus 3%, but we also added in this money that it should have been showing up in our accounts and wasn't, because of the way the finances were handled through the superintendent's office. So it appears that we're suddenly asking for a lot more. All we're asking for is money that we already received, but it was encumbered, so we couldn't spend it.
And now we're getting to the point where we can spend it if the 880 was approved, or, you know. I
Now
know-
that the art wing will be paid off, that money that we were receiving every year that didn't show up in our budget now can. So we're asking for it to continue. We're asking to continue to receive money we were already receiving, but nobody was seeing.
But we're asking for money that has no reason. In other words, the bond was paid off. We're asking for money to continue, in essence, a bond payment that doesn't exist.
Correct.
Yes, yes. So I'll pick it up at that.
Plus 4% or 3%.
To stockpile money for our next projects. Correct.
The point of doing this, Joe, was to prevent or to avoid suddenly having to jump our financial requests to cover major projects. We've been trying to put money away to pay for replacement roofs and other big ticket items so that we don't have to suddenly ask for a lot from the taxpayers in one particular year.
And we're not funding those right now, those types of things.
We're building up funds to pay for those things right now.
No, so I mean, so we don't have a capital account for a roof replacement, that type of thing.
That's correct.
Okay.
We're only allowed to have two continuous reserve accounts. One is the minor capital reserve and the other is the boiler reserve. So basically what I put the spreadsheet for together at the start was to show that these are funds that we need to plan for and we need to save, but we can't have individual reserve accounts for each little project. So this allows us to see that they're still, when they're due, when we want to be able to pay for them, we need to have the money in place for them.
So is there and I'm sorry to usurp this
fine.
kind of conversation, but is there a target amount? Are we going with 15, 16% on the boiler reserve every year?
No, the boiler reserve we raise, we've been raising a fixed amount each year. It started at $5,000 and it's gone up with 3% inflation rate each year. And that's on the capital improvement and maintenance project sheet right at the very top. We've been putting away 5,000 for roofs and stuff like that, and 5,000 for boiler replacement down the line each year. And that we started at 5,000 on each of them, but that's been increased by 3% every year. So now it's in 2021-22, it'd be 6,150 for each of them.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the total is 86,672, if I'm reading that right.
Where are you?
Yeah, that's actually, we started, I think, with 15,000 a year on the boiler reserve. And that's gone up. And I think it was, you're right, it was the 5 on the other. So that's why we're at about 16,000 per year on boiler, because that was the estimate on a 30-year replacement on a new boiler. To put about 15,000 a year plus 3% each year.
Thank you. That makes sense now.
Okay, so I don't want to interrupt, but Joe, let me know when you're done, because I want to make sure that everyone's in line based on what I've got here. So when Joe is finished, I've got Steve, Ingrid, and Tony. Is that still the
I'm
correct
okay
order?
for now, Rob. I'll probably come back, but I'm okay for now.
Okay,
Same here. I
Steve,
got nothing I'm worried about.
Ingrid?
So I just wanted to speak to Carrie's concern. there would be offsetting revenue that would be coming in to offset that 150,000 request. So in many respects, or in all respects, it's a wash. Does that make sense?
Offsetting revenue that would be coming in.
Because we would be charging a debt service, and we'd be charging a tuition charge to the incoming students. Let's say there's we'd be getting 150,000 in revenue in.
Right. No, I understand that part. What I'm saying is I'm concerned that if we have to take this to a vote with the high school committee, that certain towns are going to try and block it because they don't like the numbers that they're currently, and they're not going to want to go up.
So I would say that anybody who sits on the high school board right now, which is the 4 sending towns, is going to understand that $150,000 request is going to be offset by $150,000 of revenue that's coming in, and it's going to be a wash. I've served on that committee for 13 years. There's not going to be an issue.
Okay, maybe I'm confused about which groups are which. Do the non-island towns have a spot on the high school board?
No.
Okay, that makes me feel better then.
Okay, Ingrid, are you done?
Yep, I'm done.
Tony?
After Mark was done a few minutes ago, I amended my motion, but I didn't hear a second to that amended motion.
How did you amend it?
By what Mark said, going
To-
down to the,
to-
leaving the
Oh.
door open to be able to pick up somebody that's more fluent in this language than I am. He wanted to leave the door open so in the future we could come back with the surcharge, I believe.
Yeah.
is what he-
Yeah, but he also said that we could revisit it, so.
Why
if,
not do it now while we're here?
I'm fine. Who seconded that original
I
motion?
seconded it originally, but I think it would help if Tony and Becky could sort of make sure that we're on the same page.
I interpreted that as a point of clarification that Mark made, not for revising the motion, and that you could still vote on the motion. And Mark was reassuring people that it could be revisited.
Okay.
And so I did not put it in a motion.
Okay,
Matt?
what I'd like to do is amend my motion to
All
put
right,
it
let
in.
Matt and then Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to interrupt the flow. I think it's really important that it's whether it's this same motion or whether it's a different piece of action. It's important that if 0 of us who are in this meeting right now are
Yeah.
here in 2, 4, 3, 6, however many years that comes back, that it's clear that the intention was to bring that 150,000 back with. It's the reason this building is in such good shape after 53 years is the foresight of having this appropriately well-funded subset, this board of trustees. And I just want to make sure I'm communicating this clearly. This move of going from 880,000 to 730,000 is a reduction of about $150,000 in this budget from the 2021 budget to the 2022 budget. And that's not a good idea in the long run.
No, so my motion stands amended. Matt, that's what thank you.
And Lawson, you were okay with that, right?
I don't think I understand what the motion is then.
Well, he amended his original motion to include Matt's suggestion about leaving the door open to adjust the budget by 150,000 or whatever
The surcharge.
the surcharge might need to be. Go ahead, Matt, you can explain it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to be a pain here. I would prefer to see this worded more strongly than leaving the door open. I would prefer to see it worded like the intention is to when the debt surcharge, if and when the debt surcharge comes back into play, that this budget would be adjusted back accordingly.
That's my amendment, please.
That was easy for you to say, Tony.
Yes, it was. I've learned over the years.
Hold on. Becky, did you get that?
I think so.
Did you understand that, Lawson?
Well, sure, but I'd love to give Becky a chance to read it back to make sure that, just we can wordsmith it if we need to wordsmith it. I just don't want to
And
Okay.
Lawson, the debt's gone away, so we can't charge that surcharge fee.
Right.
Okay,
Hence the reduction.
So Becky,
So-
are you ready?
I think so.
Okay, go ahead.
Tony Smith amended the motion and Wilson agreed that the intention is that when the debt surcharge comes into play, the budget will be adjusted accordingly.
Does that cover it, Matt?
I think that maybe we should have two separate motions.
That's
We
what
should
I was
have-
thinking at the beginning.
Yes.
This is getting that we like. Let's figure out what
Okay,
our budget should be for next year. Let's
I
like
think
make
makes-
that clean, and
that
then do a
makes-
separate one about our visions for the future.
that makes a lot more sense. So you want to withdraw your
I
amendment?
withdraw my second.
And I withdraw my amendment.
So now we're still talking about the motion for a budget of 2022 of $730,000. Mark, did you want to say something before Joe?
What I was going to suggest was that typically when we get into situations like this, I think it's really important to be clear and to be able to do exactly what you guys were doing, and that's give time for either Matt or others to write something and to give the opportunity for the trustees to consider it before you advance it. It's really important to be really clear what the action is and not leave it open-ended. So that was the only thing I was going to say, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, Joe?
I guess it's kind of been decided, but I would have a whale of a problem in us obligating a future board to any kind of action one way or the other. It's fine if we, in my opinion, pass a separate motion or a separate memo of understanding or something like that. But to obligate a board in the future is just not the right play, because then you have the issue of, well, who triggers that? So it's still going to take further action, whatever happens. So in my view, so I think it's, I wouldn't want to sit on a board that has an obligation from a board that sat here 8-10 years ago, or whatever the number may be, and says, well, this board said we had to act that way. And all of a sudden everyone says, no way, this is not the situation that's before us now. We've lost whatever. We've only got this in front of us. Things have changed. And, MOU is fine if we want to take the time to let Matt write it up or something to that effect. But trying to obligate a future board is a bad mistake, I think.
Mark?
I appreciate that, Joe. Just with all due respect, the budget is an annual event, and you're not obligating anybody in the future, because it would have to be decided annually with the trustees, obviously making any considerations, and ultimately the high school board giving action with their annual budget. And the third leg of that stool is obviously the voters coming forward to approve that. So it's an annual. I appreciate that, and it's the right consideration, but everything has to be done transparently and openly annually.
So because the amendment to the original motion was withdrawn, let's not talk about that particular idea. Let's finish discussion on a motion for $730,000 for budget year 2022. Is there any more discussion on that? Tony?
Is it 730, 150?
Well, your motion was 730. It wasn't 730, 150.
Okay, the real number, I think Steve said 730,000, 150. I'll leave it 730 rather than
That's
complicate
fine.
things.
Don't sweat it.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on that? No? Okay, go ahead, Becky.
So this is for the roll call on,
Yep.
okay, so Joseph Koff,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Ingrid,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
And Kristen?
I think she said aye.
Yeah.
She did. I watched her. Yeah.
So has someone drafted or would they like to draft a motion to address the other issue in terms of our budget?
I'd suggest that we leave it be. I don't see any point in making a motion about something that will depend on whether we can, whether we're going to have enough money to warrant a surcharge.
Okay, Ingrid?
Couldn't we just do something like the current trustees recommend that when we get to the point where we can charge a debt service, that we utilize that option in the future or something like that?
I like that.
Tony,
I like that idea, what Ingrid said.
do you want to make that a motion, Ingrid?
Sure, Becky, do you need me to repeat it?
The current trustees recommend that when we get to the point where we can offer a surcharge, that we take advantage of that.
Yeah, that we, I would say
Yes.
charge a surcharge, not offer a surcharge.
Okay.
Impose.
I second that.
Tony seconded it. Did you get that?
Yep.
Any discussion about that motion? Carrie?
I just want to hear from Matt if he thinks that's strong enough language. Heath.
I think that's perfect. Thank you. I think that's exactly the sentiment I was going for. So I certainly wouldn't want to be obligating anybody, but I do think it's important just that it's noted that that's the recommendation. So I thank you for helping filter that through.
Anybody else? Okay, ready for a vote? Go ahead, Becky.
Joe,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Ingrid,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
and Kristen.
Aye.
Okay. So Steve, did you want to go over the project list, or Matt? Did you want to go over the project list, or
I'll leave it up to Matt.
does anyone have any questions about the
I mean,
project list?
What I put in here was what you had from the last meeting of proposed projects and their estimated costs. The only number I don't have, I left in what we've guessed at in 2015 for the library renovation and the upgrade of the science labs, but that's just kind of a placeholder. God only knows what that's actually going to cost.
I
Any
agree.
questions, Matt? Go ahead.
I was going to say that that's really a guide. That's certainly not a binding document by any means.
I don't see any hands. No questions on that? Thanks for doing that, Steve.
No problem.
Is there any other business? Item 10. Matt, Mark? No? I wanted to thank Matt and Mark and have them thank all the people in the district for their fortitude during this bizarre period in our history here. I think I've thanked you before, but I can't thank you enough for all that you do. I know, I just can't imagine. It's difficult enough working from home or not working from home, whatever, but having to deal with all the balls that you have in the air right now must be really, really tough.
Rob, may I?
Yeah.
My hat's off really to the teachers and to the staff and Matt. These guys have been going nonstop since March, and appreciate those words and that encouragement. And actually, this is a positive for, I think, Matt and I being able to check in and do things that we know are going to lead to the future. COVID's been tough for all of us, but I thank you and all the trustees for those kind words, and we appreciate what you do, and thanks for saying that. That means a lot and makes us feel good. inside. Appreciate it.
Matt?
Yeah, and I also, definitely want to say that it has been a challenging time, and this trustees work is eyes on the future, and it's nice to have that built in, because we definitely can get, these days, we can get pretty stuck in, we're not even looking 20 minutes ahead. And so that's great. And so this is a nice opportunity to do that. And I also want to say, I appreciate the dialogue and questions that people in this group ask. We have a really diverse group here, and we have different backgrounds and different perspectives, and our ability to, I won't say disagree, because I don't think that's what we've been doing. Our ability to see things from different perspectives here and come to a good conclusion is a model for civil discourse, which is one of the things we're really working hard in our schools to practice. And I just thank you for that, everybody. It's a pleasure to work with this group.
Anybody else? Tony, go ahead.
When the call was made to open the school, my thought was, man, that takes guts. And I don't know whose guts it was, but that I appreciate that. That's, I'll call it guts. Very gutsy call. And Matt and Mark, thank you.
Anybody else? Ingrid?
Not about this. Mark and Matt, I give them kudos all the time, so they don't need to hear it again from me. Can we pick a day or a night each month that we're going to have a trustees meeting if we think that we're going to be meeting consecutively over the next couple months? Because my schedule, which I'm sure is like everyone else's, fills up really quickly. And when I fill out a doodle poll for 4 different nights and then I don't find out a week before that week, my nights can disappear and I can't hold 4 nights. And so I think it would be if Mark's got the craziest meeting schedule, and then Matt probably falls behind him. So if there's a night that we could just say it's the 3rd Wednesday of the month or whatever it is that we're going to have trustee meetings, I think it would make it easier for all of us.
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Ingrid, thanks so much, Rob. I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in. Let me circle back with Matt and come back to you, Rob, with some recommendations. COVID has met, and this is also an opportunity for me to say thanks to the trustees. I apologize. Our last scheduled meeting was disrupted, and we're learning more and more about technology at the end of the day and hosting all these meetings. But I agree, the continuity would be greatly appreciated. I know all of you are very busy, not to mention your family time, but your professional lives and serving here. And for my part, I serve 11 different boards. So I think continuity of scheduling will be really important. I'll circle back with Matt and we'll have something to the trustees where we can look to lock in something that is consistent month to month, but knowing full well that things come up. So thank you for that opportunity.
This is my 4th or 5th spin around as a trustee. And I remember my first term, I remember distinctly that back then we only met twice a year. And, and it was like, and there really wasn't that much to do then. There's been a lot more to do over the past 10, 12 years. So I think it's appropriate. And I think it's about time to talk about doing a regularly scheduled meeting. I know it would make my life a lot easier to know that it's coming instead of us hashing out when can we meet next. So I'm all on board with doing a poll and figuring out what night of the week or what night of each month we can meet. So
if I may too, Rob, just to echo, you guys are doing incredible work. I mean, if I look at what Matt said earlier about when I look at buildings of this age, the communities can be very proud, and the work you're doing across the board in all areas is incredible. So I'm energized by it, and I appreciate that you folks are very engaged. Thank you.
So we're leaving that we're going to send out a doodle poll and figure it out by email, correct? Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's after Mark and Matt get together.
Yes. Yes. Does anyone have any suggestions for future agenda items that they want to bring up? Also, remember, if you don't have them tonight, you can send me an email at any time if you want to add something to our next agenda, and I'd be happy to do that. It doesn't, I mean, there's no guidelines for that. If you just have a question or some issue you want to discuss, feel free to bring it to my attention. So we're not going to set the date for the next trustees meeting until we do the doodle poll. Is there any other business? No? Anne? Can't hear
There we
you.
go. I got it. So I'm just realizing I can't make the Wednesday night meeting that I at the high school I wanted to get to. So you guys all go ahead. But Carrie, can you, when the library, or excuse me, when the science group does meet, if I can be a part of that? I just want to kind of be seeing what's coming at us. So, or at that big project. So not imperative, but if you guys set a meeting for some point in here, just include me in that if you will.
Yeah, definitely. And that was something, that was what I was going to ask was if we can just confirm how we're going to set that meeting for the subcommittee for science. Am I calling or setting up a doodle poll for that, or Matt, are you doing that?
Gary, why don't you and I try to talk on the phone tomorrow or the next day?
Okay, that'd be great.
So Matt, you'll be the only one there at the meeting at the walkthrough, the tour on Wednesday that knows the science stuff or the library stuff. Is that going to be okay?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Anything else? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
second.
all those in favor wave.